Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet SkyFF, the world where everything revolves around £50,000. My name's Such.
And my name is James.
I have to check into the leaderboard, James, and see how I'm getting on. Oh,
You're miles behind
same.
Paul McNulty.
Yeah, he's won it. To be honest with you,
What do you mean he's won it? He's sixth.
Yeah, but he's close enough.
The weekly. How is Paul doing?
If you're the top five, you should shit yourself because Paul is breathing down your neck. Yeah, not the best of weeks. I had Haaland captain on Saturday, as many did, and I went with Rashford captain. I'm surprised how many went Rashford captain over Kane, but I think the fact that he scored in the Barcelona game and his current form meant that a lot went with Rashford. So didn't really make any gains at the weekend. The biggest problem has been this epic fail for Manchester City defensive, which has been a real problem. But I've only got one more game to deal with it, which is Bournemouth, and then I can massively come off and start moving away from my strategy. I was in until the Bournemouth game, so be it. But Rashford's 34 points saving my week, really. I'm still the best part of 100 points off the top 100 and about 1,500 overall. But I've got transfers in hand and I've got a few ideas in mind. So
how many points this week?
60.
Oh, wow. That's tough. Yeah, I made 26 on you this week. 86 points. That's not with any transfers made. Just trying to work out where that difference would be. You won't have Zinchenko, will you?
Nope.
No, 12 from him.
I've only got Saliba.
Oh, so you haven't got Saka either?
Nope.
So that's 23 points there, isn't it? Saka and Zinchenko. And I've got 5 for Odegaard as well.
Yeah, I really went City over Arsenal, and that proved to be a mistake. But I mean, Nottingham Forest and Bournemouth as 2 games for City. They're just
nearly everybody is going to have that City. I mean, you asked who my keeper is, Edison, right? I know when he's going.
Bournemouth.
No. He's going to have to wait one more.
David
Raya Monday the 6th. Yeah, that's almost a certainty for me. Although there is maybe a case, and I think a few will be considering it, and perhaps it's one for you, Serge, if you've got Edison, is Kepa on Sunday.
And then daisy chaining to David Raya.
Well, no, different solution for Brentford Fulham in that case, I think. You know, Tony or something else. Mitrovic, we think's okay, but has become very much a pain in the arse. And I think Fulham assets are very much binnable. I've got the money in the bank to go from Paulinho to Thiago Silva or Enzo Fernandez. They're the 2 really under consideration for me for the weekend. I mean, it's probably more likely Thiago Silva for me of the 2. I think those 2 will be quite popular on Sunday. Fernandez has averaged 7 points per game in his 3 games. He's got 6, an 8, and a 7. And Thiago Silva in fixtures like Tottenham, Leeds, Leicester, and Everton coming up, and maybe even Villa going up to Saturday 29th as well. Any clean sheet in there if he plays, there's every chance with a captaincy. It's 20. And as it stands, you'd probably want to captain a Chelsea player against Everton on Saturday, the 18th of March. We've only got 2 games that day currently. The other's Villa Bournemouth. We will have at least one more, which is Wolves versus Leeds or Liverpool versus Fulham. An important note on that as well. Fulham Leeds in the FA Cup is Tuesday next week, Suj. So for you, if you've left yourself in a predicament where you're not happy with what you've got for Chelsea or don't want to go there, obviously when Liverpool play Wolves next Wednesday, you'll know whether or not they're going to play on that Saturday, the 18th of March, match day 28. So it might be that we're sitting here this time next week and going, oh, okay, I want to go back in for Liverpool again if that extra Fulham fixture's happening. But if it isn't, I probably don't. Arsenal obviously cover the captaincy absolutely fine next Wednesday. It's probably Liverpool or Rashford for captaincy Sunday 5th. But yeah, I think the way they imploded last night would have put a lot of people off. I mean, just opened up so badly. Madrid was completely ruthless. You couldn't believe watching the first 10 minutes that was going to unfold. There's nobody around would have predicted Madrid are going to come back and smash these. Crazy game, very enjoyable. Certainly the first half, particularly. What do you want to cover off, Serge? Do you want to do stuff on the April TV fixtures,
Yeah,
or
because we do have that now, and we know some additional games that were added as well into what was FPL game week 29. Yeah, so let's talk about some of these additional single game days and fixtures that are on the horizon. We still don't know what that FA Cup weekend looks like, right? So that we still have to wait on.
No, but there's a few we'll get information on next. Like I said, Fulham Leeds importantly is to Tuesday, so you've got the information potentially for Liverpool Wednesday night. Just a reminder, Manchester United Saturday 11th of March scheduled to play Southampton at home. Should they go through in the Europa League against Barcelona this Thursday, that will be moved to a Sunday. So again, you're going to get the information before the weekend comes around. It's the sort of thing, if people haven't moved Rashford on, I think particularly if it moves to the Sunday, would put a lot of people off moving it, because arguably if it's the Sunday, you captain. Arguably you do on the Saturday anyway. On that Saturday, there are alternatives. Haaland goes to Palace. Kane's got Forest at home. I think if it moves to the Sunday, Southampton at home, he'll be massively captain. Now, of course, if it moves to the Sunday, you can sell him and buy him back. It's an easy entry point, for example, as is the Liverpool game the week before, in fairness. So we'll get the FA Cup information for the 18th, 19th of March fixtures next week. For April, we've got some additional fixtures gone in. The very, very key thing that I recommend people do is go to the Premier League website, or if you're a patron, look at my planner, because there are a lot of fixtures in April that can still move. So we've got first weekend of April. We've got Arsenal Leeds has stayed on the Saturday, but not as me and Ian Parrin were predicting. It's not been the 12:30 selection. That's Manchester City versus Liverpool. On Sunday the 2nd, we've got United at Newcastle, West Ham against Southampton. So I think, again, Rashford, just on the pure ownership as and when it comes round. Monday the 3rd, single game day for Everton against Tottenham. Now, Southampton and Tottenham is off on Saturday 18th, which will happen if obviously either Tottenham or Southampton get to the FA Cup quarterfinals. There is definite movement to potentially come off Harry Kane after Nottingham Forest Saturday the 11th, come back for the Everton game Monday, April the 3rd. There are a number of teams who will play 3 times in between that period. You would think Kane will obviously be the most popular one for that fixture. It's worth saying Everton have got extra fixtures. They definitely play on FA Cup quarter-final weekend. They've got the extra game with Arsenal, but it is worth saying the 2 extra games technically for Everton are Arsenal away and Chelsea away, so we should bear that in mind. Tuesday the 4th, quite open the way it's landed, actually. We've got Bournemouth against Brighton, didn't expect. Chelsea, Liverpool, Leeds, Forest, Leicester, Villa, we did expect. It leaves the captaincy for that night quite wide open. There's not an obvious, Salah at Chelsea, Chelsea assets against Liverpool, Brighton at Bournemouth. You might even decide that that's the best one. And of course, with Brighton, no single game day with Crystal Palace, because the fixture scheduled for Thursday, the 16th of March, has been brought forward 24 hours to Wednesday, the 15th, which means for many people, one less transfer to use. If a lot of us are going for Raya or Tony on Monday, 6th of March, there is no exact requirement for a Brighton player anymore for Thursday, 16th. They don't play that night. You could just enter them on Tuesday the 4th for Bournemouth away. It is obviously an extra fixture. Wednesday the 5th looks like a clear Rashford captaincy again. Brentford at home, whilst West Ham play Newcastle. Saturday the 8th, there are a lot of fixtures scheduled for that day. Currently 8, and there will stay 8. The best of it for captaincy looks like Rashford again at home to Everton, and you will see the team because it's the 12:30 kickoff. There are a couple of fixtures that can move from that particular weekend. It's been stated on the Premier League site that Crystal Palace Leeds could move to the Sunday. That's if they need to bring one of the Sunday fixtures forward to the evening slot on the Saturday. That's because a lot of these movements are due to potential participation of clubs in European competition. So rather than doing the smart thing and going, we'll leave the Champions League clubs off of the Sunday, they've put them in. I mean, they could have just put Palace Leeds on the Sunday in the first instance. It's ridiculous. Now, Liverpool Arsenal could move, but that would be dependent on Liverpool turning around this 5-2 deficit from last night. So that's unlikely. But obviously, if Man City play in the Champions League on Tuesday the 11th, their fixture at Southampton would be brought forward to the Saturday. Therefore, you'd possibly be looking at a captaincy for that Sunday of Liverpool or Arsenal players. Saturday the 15th, few standout ones remain that day. Rashford again, Nottingham Forest away. It's the 5:30 kickoff, but that could move to the Sunday if Manchester United are still in the Europa League. Harry Kane's fixture that day is Bournemouth at home. That will stay there. A couple of the fixtures on the Sunday can move. So Manchester City is scheduled to play Leicester at home. That could move if it needs to swap with Manchester United's fixture. Liverpool has been given a single game day of Monday the 17th. Now, in the announcement, again, that's provisional on Liverpool's Champions League involvement. So that is now highly likely to remain a single game day on Monday the 17th of April. Would be obviously a clear entry point for Liverpool if you want it at that point.
Yep.
Friday the 21st, Arsenal have been scheduled against Southampton. It's another one that will move if Arsenal were still in Europa League at the quarter-final stage, as they would obviously play the night before. If it's moved, it will be moved to 7 p.m. on Sunday the 23rd, unless Southampton are in the FA Cup semi-finals, in which case, obviously, it would just be postponed. The majority of fixtures that particular weekend can obviously go or be moved date. So the only definite fixtures we have that weekend, Saturday the 22nd, are Brentford against Aston Villa, Palace against Everton, Leicester against Liverpool against Nottingham Forest. There will definitely be more because it's obviously subject on FA Cup semi-finals. Should neither Man City or Brighton be in the FA Cup semi-final, they will definitely play on Sunday the 23rd. You are probably getting the picture at this point that you probably shouldn't be planning ahead quite this far just yet, because again, there are a lot of things dependent on the FA Cup, and also very importantly in terms of the day a lot of games happen is because of European involvement. The midweek afterwards, all the games are on BT Sports. So you'll see the kickoff for all of the games. Tuesday the 25th is potentially quite awkward. So we've got that week, we've got Villa against Fulham. We've got Leeds against Leicester, Southampton against Bournemouth, and Wolves against Palace. Southampton and Bournemouth would move to the Thursday if the Arsenal Sunday game previously has moved from the Friday to the Sunday. There could also be some movement for the Leicester-Leeds fixture in that week as well. It's also not impossible, should Fulham have an FA Cup semi-final on that Sunday, that their fixture could move. So the only one from that week that's absolutely definite to go ahead on that Tuesday night is Wolves versus Crystal Palace. It won't be the only fixture. What I'd suggest is there's every chance you're going to want some Leicester coverage around about this point. That's because they've got a single game day on Monday the 1st of May at home to Everton, which, by the way, fucks up so many things for the scheduling for the following day, Tuesday 2nd. It's basically, Suj, if Arsenal were still in Europa League, they can't put any game on Tuesday, May the 2nd, from every possible game that could get postponed. You can't put any game on Tuesday, May the 2nd, because of BT have stitched Sky up with their scheduling announcement for the games in the midweek before. And Sky have also shot themselves in the foot with things like Leicester and Everton being on the Monday and perhaps not having, say, Liverpool, Tottenham on the Saturday. But then BT have put Tottenham, Man United on the Thursday. The Wednesday that week is definitely going to have Manchester City against Arsenal at the Etihad, so it will certainly be coverage for that night. Chelsea have Brentford at home. Might be a nice alternative. The Thursday night will definitely feature Tottenham against Manchester United and Newcastle's trip to Everton. The final weekend, Saturday the 29th, the only two clubs from the Big Seven, if we include Newcastle, that will play that day are Arsenal and Chelsea, and they play each other. So you would think that's probably an Arsenal captaincy Saturday the 29th. Sunday the 30th will include definitely Manchester United against Arsenal, Liverpool against Tottenham, Manchester City's trip to Fulham, and Newcastle at home to Southampton. As said, Leicester versus Everton, Monday the 1st. It also means if a rearranged game for Leicester were to go into that week against Brentford or Wolves, it would have to be on the Thursday, is what I said, Suj. They really have shot themselves in the foot. Really, really badly, actually. for that particular midweek. So we're probably only going to get 2 midweek days in that first midweek of May, which should mean covering the captaincy there should be fairly straightforward. But the key message here is so many things, particularly involving the teams in Europe, and obviously the teams still in the FA Cup can still change. But there are certain things like, you know, you're going to want a Leicester player or an Everton player for Monday the 1st of May. It's potentially when would be the entry point. But say if the Leicester Leeds fixture moved from Tuesday the 25th of April, then it becomes an easy entry point for Leicester, for example. That's kind of the coverage of the April fixtures. The keynote, I think, on that first week in April, the surprising ones there are no Manchester City additional fixture, because they've put West Ham against Newcastle there rather than Newcastle against Brighton, which is what they should have done. They should have left it open for City against West Ham. And obviously no Tottenham Southampton fixture. I know what they've done. They've rearranged every game that was postponed from the Queen's passing and the Queen's funeral has gone into that midweek, every single one. And they've added United Brentford from game 25. So it's like they've come to a conclusion and gone, oh, we're announcing the April TV fixtures. Let's smash all the games that we can in now. That's what they've decided to do. There was a potential headache, a big one done. If that King's coronation causes problem, honestly, there is a big headache for particularly Manchester City or Tottenham. Tottenham probably unlikely to still be in the Champions League, but for Manchester City, it's quite conceivable.
Maybe they know something we don't, James.
Yeah, it could be that they're aware at this stage that it's not going to be an issue. What makes me nervous about it is the things that happened previously, like bringing forward the Southampton-Brentford game earlier in the season. The whole ideology around that, moving that game forward, was factoring in that the King's coronation may be a problem. And when did that game get arranged? What, a couple of weeks ago? So maybe the situation's changed in this period, but I suspect they've just gone, let's get all these fixtures in so we can, because they know the pressure from fans is notify us. And technically, City and Tottenham's, if they both make the FA Cup semi-finals, respective rearranged games, do slot into those midweeks of 34 and 37, absolutely fine. But should City Leeds need to be on a Sunday in 35 and City have a Champions League semi-final first leg on the Tuesday, huge problem. Huge problem. The Arsenal City game, the midweek before, was on a Wednesday. You can't move it forward to the Tuesday. So you couldn't say, City play on the Friday night. So City will either play Sunday in the Premier League and then Champions League Tuesday, semi-final. That feels ridiculous, particularly if they're obviously still going for the title, or they postpone it and smash City with 2 games in 3 days right at the end instead. So I'm just a little bit concerned about that. The Southampton-Tottenham fixture, in theory, could be added on Thursday the 6th of April. That would require Tottenham against Brighton on Saturday the 8th to move to Sunday the 9th. However, should Tottenham themselves have a Champions League quarter-final first leg on Tuesday the 11th, that becomes impossible. I'd say the extra Tottenham fixture against Southampton in that midweek, which a lot of people have been asking me about, is very, very unlikely to go in there. If they haven't deemed that they've got to put a City fixture in there, they're not going to deem that they have to put a Tottenham fixture in there. It does mean, I'd said there's obviously an exit point from Harry Kane if you want it, after Forest on the 11th of March. There is a case to say now, Serge, of Erling Haaland because of this. So I think I think many of us will captain him this week. I think many of us will captain him against Newcastle, but there's clear alternatives that weekend, that day. You've got Arsenal at home to Bournemouth. You would see the City team on Saturday the 4th, which is a benefit. The following weekend, Saturday the 11th, they go to Crystal Palace. Now that day, there really are alternatives. As said, Kane against Forest and Rashford against Southampton if Manchester United go out of the Europa League. They don't play, obviously, the weekend after. We're highly unlikely to, unless, obviously, themselves and West Ham both go out of the FA Cup. But you could, if it does go ahead, it would be on the Sunday. So you could come back. Liverpool Saturday the 1st is the early kickoff. And anybody who watched Liverpool defensively last night began, yeah, James, I'm going to captain Haaland. But again, Arsenal got Leeds at home. There's alternatives. Then they don't have the midweek fixture. Then the following weekend, currently the fixture against Southampton is scheduled for the Sunday. So you could make a case that right now, on every City day, after I think this weekend, you could make a case that there are very, very viable captaincy alternatives till Sunday, the 9th of April. And should the City game against Southampton be brought forward to the Saturday, you've got competition there with Rashford against Everton, which you know that fixture is going to stay there. And if that fixture gets brought forward to the Saturday, the Leicester fixture the following week will definitely stay on the Sunday. One of those City games against Southampton or Leicester will stay a Sunday. The other one will move to a Saturday. Obviously, at this stage, we can't say for certain which one. So there will be, whether it's the Southampton weekend or the Leicester weekend, definitely a return point to go back. But after the Leicester games, the FA Cup semi-finals. So you might have another weekend with no fixture. So look, he's so powerful. There's obviously a reasonable case to say keep. And for someone like me with less transfers than the majority, he's probably highly likely to stay for me. I would say Harry Kane is possibly more expendable and come back on clearly Monday, April the 3rd against Everton, maybe. But for those like you, Suj, you should think about this.
I'm looking at Ivan Toney's got a 6 for 2 over Haaland.
You should, well, yeah, but it's not, is it? Because one, he might get banned, and two, he might get banned.
We don't know that for sure. But just as an example, I'm looking at players that have a number of fixtures. 6 for 2, Toney over Haaland. I'd bank Toney to outscore him, for example. But there's 4 for 1s and 5 for 1s and 5 for 2s as well within that. So yeah, definitely a consideration to come off City after Newcastle.
Obviously, if Leicester lose to Blackburn in the Cup, you potentially got another Brentford fixture in there as well on Saturday, the 18th of March. And you might even deem that as captaincy.
Yeah, definitely an interesting one to look at.
You'll know that, obviously, by the time the Brentford-Fulham game comes round.
Yeah.
You'll know. So lots of either ors still in those April fixtures to bear in mind. But yeah, there's a case, and obviously there's been a case to come off Rashford. Although looking at Rashford's ownership, it looks like the majority did keep and captain on Sunday. 92.1% owned still in the top 1,000. I think probably at this stage for the majority of people, it's probably not a sell. It's probably just a keep, despite no fixture this weekend.
Should we talk about some of the games from the weekend, James? Anything you want to highlight and point out from the various games and teams and what took place?
Yeah, I'll scan over a few things because I know you're a bit tight for time today. So
it's definitely worth looking at some of the tiering points.
Passing tier for Zinchenko, Saliba and Xhaka at Villa Park on Saturday. Also shot tier for Zinchenko. Turned out to be a nice little return, which immediately when Villa scored early, I mean, I obviously cheered, you know me, but I thought, oh, well, there goes bang the points for the Arsenal players defensively today. So nice little haul for him there. Shot and tackle tier and obviously goal for Bukayo Saka. Nothing major to speak about from Brentford Palace other than David Raya obviously inevitably was in the saves again. Brighton Fulham, Lewis Dunk only the 91 passes this week.
Oof. He's so on radar, isn't he?
Yeah, and to be honest, McAllister 3 shots on target again. And I think he had the same number of 4 at Crystal Palace the weekend before. So we said like his passing numbers will come down. He only had 27. And he didn't win a tackle in the match either. But he's definitely worth keeping an eye on. Even though obviously you don't need to buy Brighton now for that Palace fixture on the Wednesday night. What bloody date is that? So the extra Wednesday night fixture.
15th.
Thanks very much, mate. There's still a case to do so, and I may still do so myself as well. For Fulham, 7 saves, Bernd Leno. They've been really good defensively, actually. If someone's looking for captaincy for Friday night and looking to move it on instantly, which again might be a luxury position for many people with a lot of transfers, the sensible decision would be to say, go and buy a Wolves player, because you've got the additional fixture against Liverpool next Wednesday night. Then there's Tottenham the Saturday, and subject to whether the Leeds game on Saturday the 18th is on or off, and it's slightly more likely to be on than off. You may want to come off, though, if it doesn't happen. But obviously, if it stayed on, big games for Wolves. Big games. You could come off Saturday the 1st of April after they go to Nottingham Forest. You'd have 6 fixtures in there, and there's a number of teams will only play sort of 3 times over that period, which with a Fulham captaincy, effective 7. But for those who just want to go on something and come off straight away, I'd really consider Leno for Friday night. Now, most people, you're not going to get the gain on a goalkeeper, so maybe that's a bad example. But something like Tim Ream defensively as well.
Not a bad shout.
I think there's every chance for a Fulham clean sheet in that fixture on Friday night. It's worth saying the extra Wolves fixtures, the next 4 are tough, right? Fulham away, Liverpool away, Tottenham at home, Newcastle away is what's immediately in front of you. And obviously, if you go in Friday night, you don't know if the Leeds game is going to happen or not. And then suddenly that doesn't look a great set of fixtures. Would you skip it if you didn't have anything Friday night?
The closer it gets, the more I'm suggesting to skip it. I think I would, because I've got 2 Fulham and I'm going to come off both of them straight after Friday night. On the Saturday. I'm going to be moving to Arsenal players. And then I'm coming off some of my Man City on the Sunday for Chelsea. So yeah, I don't, after that Wolves game, I don't want any Fulham until gone all of March. And I don't like that run of fixtures for Wolves. And where do you go? They're not scoring any goals. They're not particularly keeping clean sheets, and they haven't got anyone that racks up the tier points like a machine. So I wouldn't go near it. So I'd probably skip it. The thing with, like, if you wanted to go in cheap and cheerful with Paulinho, he's walking the tightrope of getting.
When he got booked again.
So at any point, he's going to miss 2 games anyway. So he's an easy sell for me. Mitrovic is a doubt, and then we
think he's been training and we think he's okay.
Yeah, but
it's obviously it's been going on for 3-4 months now.
Yeah, I'd be very tempted to skip it, James. You're right.
The other thing is as well, if you're thinking, I want to hold my Fulham player for Monday the 6th of March, and you don't want to get a Brentford player, for example, which I'd probably recommend everyone considers actually. And that would be a definite if they end up playing Leicester on Saturday the 18th. There'd be way too many games there not to go in for it. But if you're thinking keep, I mean, even between the Fulham's games with Wolves and that Brentford fixture, you've got teams in the middle, got 3 games. Include Arsenal. For Arsenal, got Leicester, Everton, Bournemouth in between. So even if you wanted to come off and go back, would be a case in point. I think coming off Paulinho before that 10th yellow comes round, I think will be a smart thing to do. Whether he gets boots or not, I'm buying a Chelsea player from Paulinho on Sunday. I've got plenty in the bank to do so. And I recommend people consider that. And I think, if you've got Mitrovic, it's probably Friday night, keep your fingers crossed. And then I'd be looking to get rid of that quite quickly. The one I like, and I've mentioned this to you before, such as Ruben Neves, just because he's got a little bit in his locker to potentially have a little bit of, where if you want to dip in for a little bit for Wolves, get, say, the 3-for-1 over a number of teams, and then come off perhaps after the Tottenham game if the Leeds game doesn't happen. Well, obviously, if the Leeds game happens, like I said, you probably keep up until and including the April 1st fixture against Nottingham Forest. Chelsea, obviously shocking result of the weekend. Only Badiashile and Fernandes in the passing. Fernandes also tackles as well. He's a really good option. What's your Chelsea plan, Suj?
Thiago Silva.
Are you same on that, are you?
Thiago Silva. And it'll likely be a Kanji. I mean, I'm selling a lot of players and moving a lot of players, so who for who, but it'll be a Kanji will go for me for Thiago Silva.
I'm tempted to potentially do both Silva and Fernandes, purely because I think we know at certain points Silva won't play every game, for example. But I think crucially, the Everton fixture, obviously on Saturday the 18th, which will be the important one for the captaincy, they don't play the midweek before. And obviously it's internationals afterwards. So you'd look at that now and think there's no reason why Thiago Silva and Enzo Fernandez, to be fair as well, wouldn't play that fixture. And obviously I've got the extra fixture we know with Liverpool, and there's loads of extra exit points from Chelsea. So say even if their game against Manchester United, Saturday 22nd, which could move to Sunday the 23rd, is postponed because of the FA Cup semi-finals, then almost every week you can come off of Chelsea. Saturday before that. So if you want to get rid, there's no looking at, where's my exit point? There's loads, nearly every week. So that adds to the point of maybe even considering 2. And for the FPL listeners who may have listened to Monday's podcast, I've said already, I think Chelsea will come to Tottenham and win on Sunday, despite their form. I think tactically, they'll overload Tottenham in the midfield area. They'll have a lot of the ball. a lot of the ball. So I mean, currently, my intention is to captain Thiago Silva over Harry Kane on Sunday, which I know is a big risk, but I don't think many will do that. And I'm very concerned about how that game will go for Tottenham on Sunday, despite our own victory against yourselves on Sunday. Southampton, nothing majorly to pick up on. And despite obviously the extra fixture against Brentford on Wednesday the 15th, now that Tottenham fixture looks like it will likely be off FA Cup quarter-final weekend and not going to be arranged in April, the essential games kind of cancel themselves out, so they're not of huge interest. Iwobi and Decore in tackles for Everton, Firpo for Leeds in that fixture, nothing else to overly speak of. Maybe talk about Everton a little bit more, I think, next Wednesday, Suj. Man City, big passing numbers, all of the back three, or should I say back four when you include Bernardo Silva, plus Rodri and Foden in the passing, tackles for Rodri. Of course, look, if we are saying that there's scope to say potentially come off Haaland, as amazing as he's been, and he's the one City asset who has been amazing, you can come off Rodri as well.
You know what, though?
I feel like that's one I would want to come off right at the end, like after the Palace game.
The actual thought that went through my mind was, if I'm selling Haaland and De Bruyne, who we know has got a potential knock and might not even play this weekend, and Edison and Akanji and Aki.
Haaland's fine. There's no injury. So.
No, sorry, KDB. I mean, it's got a knock.
KDB's ill. So all Guardiola said yesterday was, he said, like, he's not going to play tonight. Guardiola said, look, I don't know if he'll be right for the weekend, which I think is fair enough. He's ill, right? You don't know about.
But I can come off all of them. Like, I have no fear if Rodri's my only City asset to captain him, because it's a 5 to 7 pointer most weeks. So I'm fine with captaining Rodri if I decide to really come off all City, which I have pretty much decided I'm going to do, to be fair. So I wouldn't sell Rodri, actually, James. I know you can, but I think I would want to keep one City, and the one that's Mr. Consistent is Rodri. He doesn't go explosive, but he's consistent. Yep.
He starts on 5, doesn't he? Near enough,
Always.
nearly every game.
Always.
Other than Arsenal away last week was the first time in ages, wasn't
it? Yeah.
Some big passing numbers for the Wolves players, which did include Ruben Neves against Bournemouth on Saturday. 80 passes completed. Semedo, Dawson and Kilman also in the passes. Obviously, Dawson offers a particular threat from set pieces, which may interest. If you're looking for that big haul on Friday night, I wouldn't expect them to get passing numbers at Fulham, though. I think Fulham playing Brighton and Wolves playing Fulham rather than Bournemouth are very different fixtures. Good numbers for some of the Liverpool players at Newcastle, but we have to factor in, obviously, the early red card for Nick Pope. Robertson, Van Dijk, Gomez and Trent, the back four, all in passing. Interestingly, Bajcetic, who's played again, only 18 passes. And he played all right in the first half last night, but then Liverpool completely disappeared up their own arse in that second half against Real Madrid. He's never going to be in the tiers, it's worth saying. But he's obviously potentially a cheap way into the Liverpool team. If he's playing well enough, he'll probably stay in at the moment.
A few people asking on Twitter, James, whether he's an easy option into Liverpool, but I'm not convinced yet.
Let's discuss it again next Wednesday against Wolves. Because obviously they play next Wednesday. You're not going to buy on. I'm trying to think of the situation. I guess if those have got Paulinho and don't have money in the bank, might be looking at him at that sort of value on Saturday. Possible. But it's certainly likely to be gains. Obviously, the Wolves game, there's an obvious gain. Liverpool will have an extra fixture first midweek of April, whereas Fulham, we know, won't, because Fulham's game would have been against Liverpool if it was arranged. Victor Lindelof, the only one in passing for United against Leicester. So Lisandro Martinez just out of it. Tackles for Sabitzer and Weghorst. Another 3 shots on target for Rashford. The clean sheet came about because of a good performance from David De Gea, essentially.
11-pointer for him is decent.
Yeah, Leicester, as I said, I think they're one of the ones that struck me from the April fixtures. Right, eyes on interest, because I think people like
there's a few captaincy options in there.
People like Fass is a decent price defensively. Maddison obviously offers a real talismanic possibilities, and Iheanacho as well. The problem with Iheanacho is I don't think you want to buy long in advance, because Brendan Rodgers could get the ump at any point and decide to take him back out of the team. Finally, passes for Dyer, Romero and Højbjerg against West Ham. There was tackles for Skip and Kulusevski. We got wins Saturday night that we thought Oliver Skip was going to start rather than Sarr. I was surprised, very. I said last week, keep an eye on Pape Sarr. Skip's performance would suggest that he'll probably stay in the team at the moment. There was passing for Declan Rice, but you're not going to tell anyone to buy West Ham players, are you, Sid?
No. Well, yeah, anyone in the top 1,497, buy as many West Ham players as you possibly can. I would recommend it.
Captaincy Friday, what you, Paulinho?
Mitrovic, if he's in the starting lineup.
Have you got both?
And Paulinho, if he's not.
Okay. Saturday?
Let me pull up my sheet, James.
Haaland, if we think he starts at Bournemouth, is probably still...
It'll be Haaland for me, James.
Yeah, I can't see Liverpool at Palace. I think it's possibly a little bit dicey for even a rotation perspective. Arsenal at Leicester is the alternative. You will see the Arsenal team, but most of us know what it is most weeks. I would expect Martinelli to probably come back in against Leicester as a point of reference. Sunday, I'm intending to go Thiago Silva, captaincy.
Ask me Sunday. I'm probably going to go with Harry Kane because I'm going to play the ownership, but I could be tempted to go Thiago Silva. Those are the two players that I'm likely to own. That's
the safe play, obviously, is Kane. You know, if we just look, okay, Kane, of course. I'm almost certain Thiago Silva will hit passing. And if the clean sheet comes with it, I think there's a hole. Actually, Chelsea haven't conceded a goal to Tottenham in the Premier League in the new stadium. Yeah.
Okay.
They have we have that hoodoo on Man City.
Yeah,
the
reverse.
Yes, the reverse. Man City never scored. We've never scored against Chelsea. That's a remarkable statistic. It's not to say we can't. Clearly, they're not in great shape at the moment. But you're going to have this weekend James, Thiago, and a number of others come back into that team. Raheem Sterling looked sharp at the weekend, probably starts, for example. He'll be a much stronger looking Chelsea team. And of course, you will see that team on Sunday. By the way, it's a 1:30 kickoff, not 2:00. 1:30 kickoff.
Cool. Good. And we'll worry about next Wednesday when we get to next Wednesday. James, we have a few questions in on Twitter that we can cover off. Some that we've talked about already in terms of whether or not Friday night is a potential skip. Michael Haaland wants to know if he should move Mahrez on after Saturday. Bournemouth on Saturday. There's an argument to be made. It depends where you're going, but there's an argument to start coming off City.
I think
after Saturday.
If it needs to be a midfielder, I'd go Enzo Fernandez. Yeah.
Non-Arsenal Ake Akanji replacements. I'm in that same boat as well. I've got lined up Lewis Dunk as a potential one that I could go to, and Thiago Silva is the other one that I'm looking at to add.
Yeah, Thiago Silva is an obvious one. I think Reece James probably doesn't play all of these games coming up. I think he probably misses.
The ceiling is so high, though.
Yeah, I think the most likely is that he'll miss the Leeds or the Leicester game. But the two important ones, if you want it for captaincy, Tottenham and Everton, I think he plays. I wouldn't be surprised as well, because of his historical issues, I wouldn't be hugely surprised if he's not in the England squad as a point of reference where they go, look, we need to start taking care of this boy. So he might even get a little bit of a break between March, April.
Yeah.
So they're the obvious ones. I think Tottenham defensively, no. For me, just no. I know there has been a couple of clean sheets, particularly in home games recently, but I think if you're going in Sunday, it is Chelsea. The other one, of course, to consider, if you like watching games of football through your fingers, is just wait for Liverpool next Wednesday.
Yep.
And go in there. What I would say is, who was the players? Is it Aki and someone else?
Akanji, defensive.
I think Aki will probably play at Bournemouth on Saturday. It's just something to add a potential note to that. Laporte's a doubt as well, isn't he? If Laporte's out, Aki's the only natural left footer. So if Laporte was out, you would think strongly, and we don't know at this stage, we'd think strongly that Nathan Aki would play at Bournemouth at the weekend.
Ian Parent wants to know when we're going to go for Manager of the Month with our third team. Well, I've got a second and third team, Ian. Tell anyone. So are you thinking about March, April, or May, James? I haven't given it any thought.
Very annoyingly, I've just been logged out the site. But what I can tell you is that Ian is possibly winning it for February.
Oh, lovely.
Which I did know he was going to go for it, so it was really stupid of me to try and compete with him.
Have you already gone for February as well?
Yeah, I went for it. Yeah, so I'm 38th for the month.
Okay,
which isn't terrible.
Someone else in here
I
in the
need
questions
probably
said they're going their 60th. Is
well,
that good?
I'm probably gonna have to go to try and do something. I'm probably gonna have to go blanket Tottenham defensive on Sunday just to go for it. Ian is 4th. He's 9 points off. Go on,
Not
boy.
bad. Go on, son. Last question of the show, James. We will give to Kelvin. No, not Kelvin. Where is this question that somebody asked? You know, when you see a question and then I've got, oh, here we go. Dark Invader. What situation is better, James? Being 70 points ahead with 10 transfers fewer, or 70 points fewer but 10 more transfers? That's exactly his situation in the mini league. I don't know which one. 70 ahead with 10 less.
I think because of the sheer volume of games that are going to come up for many teams where they're 3 for zeros and stuff like that, I want the transfers in hand at the moment.
Yeah,
that would be my take. If it's different stage of the season, not necessarily the case. I mean, Paul was quite keen to point out when he joined me a couple of weeks ago that he doesn't value transfers as highly as kind of the general player does. And I think that's perfectly reasonable. But I think when you're looking at sort of 3 for zeros with captaincy becoming 4 for zeros and stuff, I would want the transfers.
I think so too, but I think it's quite close at this stage of the season between whether or not I'd rather have the transfers. And 70 points is probably, you with those transfers, you might get to 80, 90 points, but you're not going to get like double 140 points out of it unless you really have one captaincy that goes off big. So yeah, tricky one. Interesting to think about. Yeah. Cool.
See you next Wednesday, boss. Clash of Correspondents tomorrow, by the way. Liverpool versus Wolves with Dan Lord and Bradley Parker. If that's your thing ahead of Liverpool Wolves fixtures next week.
Sounds fantastic. Listeners, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Sky Fantasy Football. I cannot recommend enough James's Excel planner that we have available to all of our patrons on our Slack channel. So if you're a very keen Sky player, you want to give that a go, even if you join at the basic tier, £3 a month, get access to that. And it might help you plan out when you're making your transfers and all of that kind of thing as well. But yeah, other than that, look after yourselves, stay safe. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great week. Play it your way. Cue music, please, man. Show.